This meticulous effort to conceal the crime, even in its crudeness, indicated a deliberate, chilling premeditation, an act committed by someone who sought to escape accountability for the unspeakable violence they had wrought. The question now pivoted from what had happened to who had meticulously tried to cover it up, adding a layer of cunning deceit to the already tragic narrative. Upon their initial survey of the Palmdale home, a deceptive calm pervaded the interiors. The living room, with its comfortable furniture and everyday arrangements, presented an outwardly normal appearance. There were no overturned chairs, no shattered lamps, no overt signs of a violent struggle that would immediately betray the horror that had unfolded within its walls. Yet a subtle but significant detail quickly caught the trained eyes of the investigators. A large area rug, which had once covered a substantial portion of the carpet, had been clearly displaced. The distinct indentation, a ghost outline of its previous resting place, was still discernible on the underlying carpet fibers. In the grim calculus of crime scene analysis, a moved rug is rarely an innocent detail. It frequently serves as a telling clue, suggesting either that the rug itself had been sullied with incriminating evidence, perhaps blood or other bodily fluids, or, more chillingly, that it had been intended for use in the gruesome task of transporting a body. The implications were immediate and deeply unsettling. Following their examination of the living room, the investigative team meticulously proceeded to the adjacent laundry room, a space often overlooked in its utilitarian simplicity. There, their grim suspicions were chillingly confirmed. They discovered several towels, once pristine, now heavily saturated with blood, crumpled and discarded. The evidence was irrefutable, an undeniable, desperate attempt had been made to meticulously clean up the horrific scene, to erase the damning stains of violence. The perpetrator, or perhaps an accomplice, had clearly devoted significant effort to sanitizing the aftermath, though their efforts proved ultimately futile. While forensic specialists continued their painstaking work, meticulously processing every inch of Lanell's home for clues, a different kind of investigation was unfolding back at the police station. Detectives were engaged in an extended and intense interview with Lorraine Austin, seeking to piece together the events of that fateful day. According to the officers present, Lorraine's initial arrival at the station had been marked by an almost uncontrollable surge of emotion. She was utterly distraught, verging on hysterical, her composure shattered by the gruesome discovery she had made. The raw intensity of her grief and terror was palpable, her story unfolding amidst sobs and fragmented recollections, forcing the detectives to navigate not only the narrative of the crime but also the profound emotional distress of the sole witness, or at least, the person claiming to be. The questions mounted: how reliable was her account? What hidden details might her terror obscure? And most critically, did her emotional turmoil mask something more sinister, a deeper involvement that had yet to come to light? The silence in the interrogation room was heavy, thick with unspoken possibilities, and the detectives pressed on, knowing the truth of Lanell's final hours lay buried somewhere within Lorraine's fractured memory. To the seasoned eyes of the detectives, Lorraine's profound emotional state initially aligned perfectly with the expected reaction of someone who had just made such a horrifying discovery. Her tear-streaked face, her trembling voice, the raw, unfiltered grief she exhibited, it all seemed consistent with the anguish of a woman who had just found her friend brutally murdered. After all, she had confided that their friendship spanned a decade, a testament to a deep and enduring bond, making her distress entirely understandable. As she gradually composed herself, Lorraine began to meticulously recount the day's unfolding tragedy. She vividly described the escalating tension between Lewis and Lanell, emphasizing that their arguments had not been confined to that single day but had been a persistent undercurrent for days, perhaps even weeks, leading up to the murder. The core of their volatile disputes, she revealed, centered around Lewis's discovery of Lanell's infidelity. The illicit cell phone, once a carefully guarded secret, had detonated like a bomb in their shared home, exposing Lanell's clandestine relationship and fueling Lewis's possessive fury. Lorraine recounted that even after their return from the hair store, the argument between the couple had not abated. Instead, it intensified, their raised voices and palpable anger permeating the once peaceful home. The atmosphere became unbearable, Lorraine explained, making her profoundly uncomfortable. Seeking an escape from the escalating domestic inferno, she made the decision to leave, seeking solace and distance in a solitary walk around the neighborhood. A few hours later, upon her return to the house, the true horror awaited her. It was then, she claimed, that she stumbled upon Lanell's lifeless body in the garage, a scene of unspeakable carnage. But Lorraine's narrative took an even more chilling turn. As she stood in the blood-soaked garage, grappling with the shock of her discovery, she distinctly heard a sound emanating from the upper level of the house. Her eyes instinctively darted towards the top of the internal staircase, and there, partially obscured in the dim light, she saw Louis. His sudden appearance, his silent gaze from above, added a sinister layer to her already harrowing account, painting him as a looming, unsettling presence at the periphery of the murder scene. The implication hung heavy in the interrogation room. Louis, the jealous boyfriend, found at the scene, mere moments after the discovery. It was a narrative that meticulously pointed towards him as the prime suspect, a story that felt almost too perfect, almost too convenient, leaving the detectives to wonder if they were hearing the unvarnished truth or a carefully constructed fabrication designed to deflect suspicion. Overwhelmed by a primal, debilitating fear, Lorraine claimed she bolted from the house in a frantic dash, her mind racing, her heart hammering against her ribs. In her terror, she discovered she couldn't locate her cell phone, making a direct call to emergency services impossible. With no other recourse, she instinctively fled, driving straight to the nearest police station, seeking sanctuary and assistance from the authorities. The narrative Lorraine spun for the investigators was undoubtedly shocking, a tapestry woven with infidelity, rage, and sudden death. Yet, in the grim landscape of true crime, it was not entirely unprecedented. It aligns with a stark statistical reality. When a woman is murdered, particularly in such a brutal and intimate fashion as Lanell had been, her current boyfriend or spouse is tragically, and often justifiably, the immediate focus of suspicion. Lorraine's meticulously detailed account painted a vivid and damning portrait. A man consumed by corrosive jealousy, driven to a violent rage after discovering his partner's infidelity, left alone with her in the critical hours leading up to her death. Her story meticulously constructed a scenario that squarely positioned Louis as the prime suspect. Consequently, law enforcement immediately pivoted their investigation, focusing with intense scrutiny on Louis and the intricate, often turbulent, dynamics of his relationship with Lanell. What they began to unearth was deeply unsettling, a mosaic of tension, control, and veiled aggression that corroborated Lorraine's allegations. It took little time for the pieces to seemingly align, solidifying Louis's position as their foremost suspect, drawing all attention, all suspicion, directly to him. However, the labyrinthine path of criminal investigation frequently reveals that appearances can be deceiving, that the most obvious conclusion is not always the true one. As seasoned detectives know, the surface narrative often masks a deeper, more insidious truth. And as these investigators, driven by an unyielding pursuit of justice, delved deeper and deeper into the convoluted layers of Lanell's life and death, they began to perceive a chilling complexity. The deeper they dug, the more unsettling details they uncovered, forcing them to confront a reality far more disturbing, far more intricate, and ultimately more shocking than they could have ever possibly imagined. The truth, it seemed, was not merely hidden, but intricately woven into a web of deceit that was about to ensnare someone entirely unexpected, leaving the initial conclusions in tatters, and opening a new, terrifying chapter in Lanell's tragic story. There are moments universal to the human experience, when one yearns for a comprehensive instruction manual for navigating the currents of life. Alas, such a guide remains elusive, often leaving individuals feeling profoundly adrift or stuck when personal pathways become obscured. The sheer act of confronting life's inherent challenges, be it a pivotal career transition, the tender genesis of a new relationship, or the all-encompassing journey into parenthood, can instill a pervasive sense of self-doubt. It is precisely at these junctures that trained therapists offer invaluable assistance, guiding individuals to identify the deep-seated origins of challenging emotions and to cultivate effective, constructive coping skills. In essence, therapy provides the closest approximation to a personalized, expertly guided tour through the complex, often mysterious, inner landscape of one's own being. In this modern era, a widely utilized service has seamlessly connected over 3 million individuals with a vast network of licensed and rigorously vetted therapists. This resource offers unparalleled convenience and accessibility, being entirely online and available from virtually any location. As one of the world's largest providers of therapeutic services, it simplifies the process of finding professional support, making the benefits of therapy remarkably easy to access and, crucially, affordably priced for countless people seeking clarity and healing. To embark on this journey of self-discovery and healing, one simply completes a concise, intuitive questionnaire designed to facilitate a precise match with an appropriate therapist. Should the initial connection not fully resonate, the platform offers the seamless flexibility to transition to a new therapist at any juncture, ensuring an optimal therapeutic alliance. The entire process is engineered for unparalleled simplicity, devoid of the customary frustrations of traditional therapy. No sterile waiting rooms, no arduous commutes through congested traffic, and no seemingly endless, often dispiriting search for the ideal professional. To delve deeper and receive a generous 10% reduction on your initial month of service, visit betterhelp.com/girlgone. That's spelled BTTRHELP.com/girlgone. The art of thoughtful gifting often presents a perplexing challenge, yet one brand has ingeniously simplified this endeavor with a collection of socks, underwear, and t-shirts that epitomize both tactile comfort and profound social responsibility. These items are exquisitely crafted, meticulously designed from the most luxuriously soft materials, ensuring an unparalleled wearing experience that truly feels good. More significantly, they inherently do good, because for every single item purchased, the company generously donates an equivalent product to an individual experiencing homelessness or profound need. The exceptional comfort of these socks is a revelation in itself, transforming an everyday essential into a small luxury. This intrinsic quality, coupled with their incredible mission of charitable giving, providing a fresh pair of socks or underwear to someone less fortunate, makes their entire enterprise truly commendable. Their comprehensive range of socks, underwear, t-shirts, and even slippers represents an elevated upgrade to foundational wardrobe staples, making them the quintessential gift for every individual on your carefully curated list, including a well-deserved treat for yourself. Bombas elevates the mundane to the magnificent by meticulously selecting luxurious materials for their core products. Their renowned socks and t-shirts are crafted from premium Pima cotton, celebrated for its extraordinary softness and durability, alongside ultra-soft, never-itchy merino wool, which offers superior warmth without bulk. For their exquisitely comfortable slippers, they incorporate a plush, inviting fuzzy Sherpa lining, cocooning feet in unparalleled coziness. This commitment to superior fabrication extends to their festive offerings. The Bombas Holiday Collection, a harmonious blend of tradition and modernity, reinterprets classic festive hues and patterns with a contemporary flair. Imagine sophisticated palettes featuring deep, opulent purples and verdant greens, subtly integrated into intricate geometric snowflake designs. Textures evoke the comforting embrace of a favorite sweater, while retro ski patterns transport you to an era of classic winter charm. For those cherished holiday moments, their family sets allow loved ones to coordinate in matching comfort and style, creating opportunities for truly memorable, frameable holiday photographs that capture the spirit of togetherness. It is also a poignant truth that socks, underwear, and t-shirts constitute the top 3 most urgently requested clothing items in homeless shelters across the nation. This stark reality underpins the profound generosity of Bombas' mission. For every single item purchased, they diligently donate an equivalent piece of clothing to an individual in need. To date, this remarkable initiative has resulted in the donation of over 75 million items of clothing, a staggering figure that translates into an immeasurable quantity of comfort, dignity, and warmth distributed to vulnerable populations. This holiday season, extend the spirit of genuine goodwill and comfort with Bombas. Visit bombas.com/girlgone and utilize the exclusive code GIRLGONE to receive a generous 20% discount on your very first purchase, becoming part of their impactful cycle of giving. To reiterate for clarity and ease of access, That's bombas.com/girlgone, and remember to apply the code GIRLGONE at checkout for your 20% savings. Again, it's bombas.com/girlgone with the code GIRLGONE. The afternoon of June 16, 2010, cast a long, dark shadow over Palmdale when Lanell Barsock's lifeless body was discovered in the garage of her own home. The preceding hours had been fraught with escalating tension, marked by a bitter and persistent argument between Lanell and her live-in boyfriend, Louis. Her close friend, Lorraine Austin, had been present earlier in the day, having arrived to complete a hair styling session. Lorraine recounted to investigators that she felt compelled to leave the residence as the couple's dispute intensified and showed no signs of abating. However, upon her return a few hours later, she was met with an unimaginable horror. Lanell lay dead, a plastic bag chillingly placed over her head, signaling a brutal and intimate act of violence. From the very outset of their investigation, seasoned police officers quickly dismissed the possibility of a random home invasion or a robbery gone awry. The scene bore none of the hallmarks of such crimes. Rather, the meticulous, albeit clumsy, attempts to clean up the crime pointed towards a perpetrator intimately connected to Lanell, someone who sought to cover their tracks from within. As they meticulously sifted through the initial evidence and witness testimonies, suspicion began to coalesce with alarming speed, settling directly upon Louis. The narrative Lorraine provided, detailing the tumultuous argument Lanell had with her boyfriend, painted a compelling picture of a jealous lover driven to extreme measures. Her account, brimming with details of infidelity and rage, strongly steered police towards the grim conclusion that Louis was, in all likelihood, the individual responsible for this heinous murder. Every piece of information, every observation, seemed to point unequivocally in his direction, leading investigators to zero in on him with a laser-like focus, convinced they were closing in on the truth. At first glance, the intricate threads of evidence seemed to weave together into a seemingly open and shut case, with all indications pointing towards Louis as the perpetrator. However, the bedrock of any thorough investigation necessitated hearing his account, to understand his version of the day's tragic events. Ironically, as detectives began their search, Louis was not far off. He was found at the home of Lanell's mother, Bobby. Bobby had previously shared with Crime Stoppers that the couple frequently stayed at her Los Angeles residence, finding it a convenient respite whenever they were in the city and disinclined to make the drive back to Palmdale. That somber night, Bobby received a call from a detective, his voice laden with a gravity that instantly stirred an unsettling feeling within her. He inquired if Louis was currently at her home. Indeed, he was. With a sense of foreboding, Bobby approached the door of the room Louis occupied, knocking softly before informing him that there was a call for him. Unable to entirely quell her growing anxiety, Bobby admitted to lingering nearby, inadvertently listening in on the conversation. Her heart must have lurched as she overheard Louis's query. "Is this about Lanell?" At that precise moment, immersed in the mundane domesticity of her home, Bobby remained tragically unaware that she stood on the precipice of an unimaginable precipice, mere moments away from receiving the most devastating news a mother could ever endure. The world, as she knew it, was about to shatter. Not long after that chilling phone call, the distinct, ominous presence of police vehicles pulled up to Bobby's tranquil home. Officers emerged, their faces grim, their purpose clear, to escort Louis to the station for questioning. It was then, amidst the flashing blue lights and the hushed, professional tones of the law enforcement officers, that Bobby was finally confronted with the crushing, unbearable truth: her beloved daughter, Lanell, was dead. The revelation struck her with the force of a physical blow, stripping away any pretense of normalcy, and plunging her into an abyss of grief and shock. The quiet comfort of her home suddenly felt cold and alien, forever marked by the indelible stain of her daughter's tragic end. The seemingly straightforward investigation was about to deepen, yet the immediate aftermath was pure, unadulterated heartbreak. Louis was taken into custody that very night, the somber atmosphere of Bobby's home giving way to the stark, fluorescent reality of the police interrogation room. Detectives, their expressions unreadable, immediately commenced questioning him, meticulously probing for details, inconsistencies, and admissions. Lewis, however, steadfastly denied any involvement in Lanell's brutal murder, maintaining his innocence with unwavering resolve. He readily admitted to the day's volatile events, acknowledging that he and Lanell had indeed engaged in a heated argument. Furthermore, he confessed to pursuing the two women to the hair store, where their dispute continued to escalate in a public space. His narrative then diverged sharply from Lorraine's account. Lewis claimed that shortly after Lanell and Lorraine returned to the Palmdale house, he departed for Los Angeles. His purported purpose for this journey was to meet Lorraine's boyfriend, who was supposedly undertaking repairs on Lewis's vehicle. He pinpointed his departure time at approximately 12:30 in the afternoon, stating that once in LA, he and Lorraine's boyfriend embarked on a quest, visiting several auto parts stores to procure the necessary components for the car's repair. Despite his detailed alibi, the detectives remained unconvinced, their trained instincts signaling deception. In a later interview with Crime Watch Daily, one of the investigators vividly recalled Lewis's performance during the interrogation. He was demonstrably emotional, his body racked with sobs, yet, chillingly, his eyes remained dry, completely devoid of actual tears. He repeatedly uttered the plea, "You have to find the murderer." A refrain that, to the detectives, sounded less like a desperate plea for justice and more like a manipulative attempt to deflect suspicion. In that interrogation room, amidst Lewis's performative grief and carefully constructed alibi, the police were profoundly certain of one thing: they believed they had already found the murderer. The pieces, in their eyes, fit perfectly, sketching a clear path from jealousy to violence, and straight to Lewis's door, yet the true complexity of the case was about to reveal a shocking new dimension. Lorraine's dramatic account of the day's tragic events resonated far more credibly with the investigators than Lewis's comparatively disjointed and emotionally hollow narrative. Compounding their suspicions, detectives keenly observed a distinct scratch marring Lewis's face, a fresh abrasion that they immediately theorized had been sustained during the violent struggle with Lanell, further cementing his perceived culpability. As the intensive interrogation of Lewis continued at the station, a flurry of activity unfolded concurrently at the Palmdale crime scene, where forensic teams were meticulously gathering an abundance of crucial evidence. The autopsy had been promptly performed, revealing the grim truth: Lanell had been killed by a gunshot wound. Further forensic analysis indicated that the fatal shot had been fired from a distinct downward angle, suggesting a particular positioning of the assailant relative to the victim. Within the meticulously searched confines of the house, investigators made a chilling discovery: a pillow, its fibers singed and its fabric stained, had clearly been employed as an improvised silencer, a macabre detail pointing to a premeditated and calculated act of murder. To uncover the invisible remnants of the violence, luminol was deployed, its chemical reaction illuminating a horrifying truth. The investigators described a pervasive, almost overwhelming presence of blood throughout the house, starkly revealed by the glowing luminol. The testing conclusively demonstrated that a desperate, albeit ultimately unsuccessful, attempt had been made to meticulously clean the crime scene. More disturbingly, the luminol patterns indicated that Lanell had not been murdered in the garage, as originally presumed, but rather within the house itself. The trajectory of the blood spatter and the telltale luminous trails confirmed a harrowing sequence of events. Her body had been brutally murdered inside, then deliberately dragged from the living room, through the kitchen and laundry room, leaving an almost invisible, yet indelible, trail of blood that culminated in the garage, where her lifeless form was eventually discovered. The sheer scale of the cleanup attempt, juxtaposed with the pervasive blood evidence, painted a chilling picture of calculated brutality and a desperate, meticulous effort to conceal the heinous act. Within Lanell's car, parked starkly in the garage, detectives made further chilling discoveries that amplified the burgeoning evidence. More blood was found, not merely drops, but substantial stains, particularly on plastic sheets which appeared to have been deliberately draped or used to contain the horrific aftermath. Adding to the perplexing scene, the car's trunk was filled with an incongruous assortment of garbage, an odd detail amidst the signs of brutal violence. The sheer volume and nature of the evidence being unearthed were becoming almost overwhelming for the investigators, pointing towards what seemed to be a straightforward, easily provable case. Their certainty was further solidified by the discovery of a Dear John letter, a stark piece of communication that powerfully corroborated Lorraine's testimony about another man in Lanell's life. This letter, found prominently displayed on the refrigerator, was handwritten and unmistakably addressed to Lewis. Its contents were scathing, a brutal declaration of departure that read, "Dear Lewis, I'm leaving you for Ike. He makes more money, so you can do what you like with the house. I'm moving out of the state with Ike, so that's why I gave you the phone. We're getting married, so just leave me alone. You can have everything in the house. I have been sleeping with him for 4 months. He's the one that pays my car note, so good luck in life." The letter concluded with a curt, emotionally distant farewell. "Goodbye, Lanell." And beneath this devastating message, a postscript promised even more revelations, leaving the detectives convinced they had stumbled upon a crystal-clear motive for Lewis's rage and subsequent violence. The emotional weight of the letter, combined with the physical evidence, painted a damning picture of betrayal and escalating conflict, further cementing their conviction about Lewis's culpability, believing they were rapidly piecing together the precise emotional fuse that had ignited the murder. The postscript to the biting letter contained an intriguing, albeit partially redacted detail. It initially stated, "I'm taking one of the TVs." But this particular phrase had been conspicuously scratched out, a minor alteration that hinted at a last-minute change of heart or perhaps a revision of the letter's intended message. Even prior to receiving the conclusive results from the rigorous lab analyses of the collected evidence, law enforcement officers found their conviction in Lewis's culpability solidifying with each passing hour. They were, of course, fully cognizant of Lanell's clandestine relationship. The Dear John letter itself eloquently detailed the presence of another man in her life, a figure named Ike. Before proceeding further with Lewis as their primary suspect, standard protocol dictated that this other man, Ike, be thoroughly investigated and formally cleared. Consequently, detectives interviewed Ike, and following their questioning and corroboration of his alibi, he was indeed officially cleared of any involvement in Lanell's murder. This step, far from complicating their case, appeared to remove yet another potential impediment, seemingly clearing the path towards formally charging Lewis with the heinous crime. Meanwhile, forensic teams continued their painstaking, meticulous work at the crime scene, sifting through every detail, while Lewis remained confined in police custody, awaiting his fate. Investigators, confident in their direction, impounded Lewis's car, launching an exhaustive search for additional corroborating evidence. Their specific objective was to locate any traces of blood that might link the vehicle to the murder, or, even more definitively, to unearth the murder weapon itself, a 9mm firearm, as determined by the initial forensic findings. However, as they meticulously combed through the interior and exterior of Lewis's vehicle, a profound and unsettling anomaly began to emerge. The items and clues they were uncovering were not, in fact, the pieces of evidence they had so confidently anticipated finding. A quiet, yet profoundly weighty confirmation followed, emphasizing the grim accuracy of the preceding statement. It was the right one, the accurate, painful truth that demanded acknowledgement, a somber echo that reaffirmed the critical importance of drawing attention to these often overlooked disparities, ensuring that such bitter realities were not simply dismissed or forgotten,